pudding, and the pudding in this case is a football. Boom! Eat my goal! The goalie has got football pie all over his shirt.
Okay, so welcome to this episode. First of all, before Gary's going to do a quiz, so people would introduce themselves and let us know where they kind of situated themselves in the Wanderers grounds, apart from Kevin, because he's scum of the earth. So let's start with Dave and then work our way around.
Hi guys, Dave Finlayson. I actually worked with the club for 4 years in the business development side, and generally I don't sit anywhere. I wander aimlessly through different parts of the stands and the premium pitch side to get a good view of all the goals we score from open play.
Nice.
All three of them, or
okay, so Jerry, you go next, buddy.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Jerry. I stand typically over in 109, right up in the front. I wasn't even sure, actually, Anthony, if I should introduce myself or not, because every time I ask a question, you always just say, someone on Twitter asked, or someone on Discord asked. So I didn't know if maybe I should just introduce myself as that guy on Twitter, that guy on Discord.
Yeah,
or if I was allowed to have a name.
See, the thing is that because your questions are so bad, I just don't want people to know it's coming from you. So
you're doing me a service
exactly
by not revealing my name. All right,
exactly.
there we go.
Yeah. So this the man that doesn't really need an introduction, but away you go, Denton.
Hello, podcast audience. My name's Denton. I'm usually sitting in section 105 in the grandstand, and sometimes I'm also sitting in any of the other cities because I've been traveling a lot, following the Wanderers around and enjoying being, an unofficial ambassador for the Privateers. And I'm also the publisher of our fanzine, The Cookbook. And seeing as how I think about 3/4 of my paying audience are in this Zoom meeting, it's great to see you all.
Yep. Gary,
Denton,
Gary, get your hand in your pocket and pay for the cookbook, would you?
I've paid for every single one, mate.
Sure.
Yeah, don't worry. It's Carlos that still owes me money.
Okay, there we go. There we go.
I had an article in one of them once, actually. So really, that commission should be coming in soon, Denton.
Carlos, you owe Gary some money. So Kevin, you go next, buddy.
All right, so I'm Kevin from the championship winning Forge FC. No, who's here? And I rapidly followed Denton around and just missed hitting all the stadiums before he did. So I have sat at your stadium for the very first ever Wanderers game. It was amazing. And it's the reason that everybody in Hamilton wants to come back out, because I won't shut up about it.
Amazing. Where you go, Simon?
Hey, I'm Simon. I'm 23 from Heartland, New Brunswick. And for anyone wondering, that's a 5-hour drive to Wanderers grounds for me. And I've made that trip about 5 times now. And I also flew to York at the beginning of the season to see the boys kick off there. And yeah, I'm just a Canadian soccer super fan here from New Brunswick. And yeah, the Wanderers are the closest thing I have to a local club. So that's who I support wholeheartedly.
I just want to say to people that this isn't a dating show, so you don't need to tell us your age. Derek, Derek, away you go, buddy.
Derek Simon. I usually sit in 110 at the grounds, although I have been known to sneak into other sections at times. So glad to be on.
Amazing. And we left the worst to last. Away you go, Matt.
Jesus.
I know. It's a Liverpool thing, man. You're doing it to yourself.
You're a United fan, aren't you?
No, that's Tottenham fan. It's even worse
Tottenham.
than that. So, yeah.
My only game at Liverpool, we beat Tottenham.
Buddy, you're not helping yourself here. Go on. Away you go.
My name's Matt Poudre. I'm from the Valley. I usually sit in the front of 110, closest to 109, with my wife and 11-year-old daughter. And yeah, I'm a big Liverpool fan. I've got a massive Liverpool room next door over there.
Nice.
Apparently, I'm the most hated guy on here.
Pretty much, apart from Kevin, actually. So thank you all so much for doing this. I thought it'd be like a good idea for us to kind of have a bit of a catch up and hear like the fans' voices as we kind of move into the new year. So Gary, away you go, my friend, with your amazing quiz.
I've only got 3 questions, but
Jesus Christ.
all right, question number 1. In the history of Wanderers, this is a 3-way tie, which 3 players have the most assists for Halifax? And this is over like all of the seasons, not just in one season.
Over 4 years,
Yeah.
which 3 players are tied for
And
team lead?
They're tied on 5, so it's not exactly many.
Wow. That's a
Wow.
Borges season.
That's a gorgeous October. Jesus
I
Christ,
thought
man.
our goal scored was bad.
One game against us.
Yeah.
Okay, so who all has had 5 assists?
Akeem
Oh,
Garcia.
No. So I'll give you a clue. One of the players joined in 2020, one of them joined in 2021, and one of them joined last season.
Wow.
Is Fernandez one of them?
Zachary
I was gonna say it's
Fernandez
gotta be
doing my
Fernandez.
guess.
Gotta be one.
Fernandez is one.
Is
JGL.
Bent one?
Say that again, Derek.
JGL.
JJO is the other one, and there's
Nice.
one more.
Morelli?
I'd say Bent.
Yeah, Ben's the other one.
Yeah,
Oh,
correct.
wow.
Smashed
Well
out
done.
of the park there, boys.
Wow.
All the white guys.
Great teamwork.
All right, next question. Who was in the back 4 for Wanderers' first ever game versus Pacific in April 2019? The back 4.
Back 4.
Yeah.
Was
Zoom.
Shakira
Let's go. Who?
one?
Careless.
DeCarolis was not.
But
Shala?
Zoom would have been left back, wouldn't he?
Zoom was left back. Yeah, Shala.
Yeah.
Kev was centre back.
Okay.
Okay. Who would have played? Oh, Bono probably would have played right back.
No.
Ensa?
Oh,
Ansar. Yeah, Ansar and Shala were the centre backs and the right back.
Was Secunda in
the
there?
doctor.
Secunda. Yeah, who said
Yeah,
Secunda?
Zach.
Right away.
Oh, Zach
Hey.
Secunda.
Zachary Secunda, number 1.
Okay.
Original wonder.
The first one.
The original one, yeah.
Forever first.
Right, the last question of our icebreaker. So this one, I was told this. Dave probably knows about this as well. I was told about this in the first season, but I think it's safe to actually talk about this now because it's 4 years later. So in 2019, Wanderers actually had 8 internationals, not 7, but there was an oversight by the league who didn't realize this person was actually an international, and it was like kept on the down low for the entire season.
Amazing.
Who was the 8th
man.
player who should have been registered as an international but wasn't?
Wow.
That's a great question, Gar.
Yeah.
You mean Kodai Ida wasn't from Brampton?
No,
Yeah,
he,
because
he definitely was an international. though.
yeah, Kodai
Yeah.
was an international. The Ghost was an
The
international.
ghost. The ghost.
The 4 trainees.
No, the ghost.
Oh,
the ghost.
not Youssef.
Youssef was down as domestic correctly.
Oh, okay.
Youssef was domestic.
Oh no.
So there was the
Who-
4.
who
The 4.
said-
There was
someone
the
just
4.
said it.
4
Oh,
trainees.
Bona?
Bona, yeah.
Yeah, he's
French,
French.
right?
Yeah, and because of
Well,
it was like a weird thing because
Yeah.
he was at
And he was
university at the time.
4th year, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the
I
league
actually
didn't pick
didn't
up
know
on it till
that,
later.
Gary.
So why did Bona should have counted as international?
Because he graduated.
But
graduated.
we drafted him.
But
I thought-
because
Hence the loophole.
yeah,
Oh.
that's why it was like a bit of a loophole.
Okay, because I was gonna say I know that Shala counted as domestic because and I thought it was because we drafted him, but you're saying it was because he was returning.
He was
to
a
school.
third. He was a 3rd year going into 4th.
Yeah.
I think it only counts if you're on the development contract. And if you're on a regular contract, which Bona was, then you're international.
That's a
But
great
Corey, when we
Great
drafted
question.
him and he played for us in the Island Games, he wasn't going to go back to school, and he count as domestic that first year because he was a draft.
I think Corey was always international.
Yeah,
I
he
think-
was always international.
Yeah. And
Wow.
that's the quiz. Nice little
Yeah.
facts for you all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well done.
And I must confess, following Andre Bona as he's cheering through the World Cup, yeah, he's definitely an international.
So
I just thought he was from Quebec.
No, he's from France. Didn't he play with Marseille?
No, I think
Yeah, he
you're
was with
right, like-
Marseille's youth team, yeah.
Well, he
Yeah,
was
Marseille.
he did track for a bit, like track and field, and then
Yeah,
and then
he was almost like Olympic caliber track.
Yeah.
he was he
Man, he
he's
could move.
speedy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I had quite a chat with him at the end of the first season. He was a very interesting cat.
He's yeah, and he usually showed up for like a lot of the Wanderers viewing things during the Island games. He's a really nice guy and he's really accessible. So so I thought the first thing we would get into is sorry, go ahead, Dent.
To Andre Bona, nice guy. To date, the only Wanderer who's actually paid me for one of my cookbooks.
Wow.
The rest are a bunch of moochers.
Yeah. Morelli, you need to step up. So today they announced some big news for the league that the players have voted in for the union to be recognized. I think that's what they did today. And obviously there was chats with the league that they were going to recognize them too. So the players are now have a union. So I thought it'd be a good idea just to see what you guys thought about the whole thing. I thought just one of the interesting things that I took from it was John Molinaro, the journalist guy, had writ that the appointment of Mark Noonan as CPL commissioner was a turning point in the union league relationship. One source told me the union genuinely feels it can work with Noonan, but didn't have the same feeling with Flanagan, which I thought was a big kick in the bollocks there. But yeah, so what did you guys think of that? Dave, what did you think?
Yeah, I think kind of watching this for the last few years, one of the things I always like to take into account is why are people saying what they're saying? And I also think the situation needed to be set properly for the union to be accepted by the league and make sure this was going to be a strong union that's going to represent the players well and be professional. And I think a lot of those things have been questioned over the years. And it feels like over the last several months, it's really turned the corner. So regardless whether the players wanted to have it, you got to make sure it's going to be great for them and great for the league as well. So this has to be a partnership going forward. And I think Noonan's the right guy to drive that forward. And the people that are involved now with the union are going to be very important to drive that forward.
I think, Derek, being a lawyer, you probably have an opinion on this.
Do lawyers often have opinions? I've never heard that before.
I didn't think they were allowed to.
Yeah.
Well played,
I'll qualify this by saying I'm not a labor lawyer, so it's not really my area. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a positive. Like Dave said, you want to be sure that the union that's putting itself forward is going to be an effective representative for the players and has the support of the players, which the PFA appears to do now. So that's critical. And almost any league at this level has to have some type of players union. And so I think it's a step forward for the league. I think it's a step towards a more professional league, a more professional environment. And it sounds like pay is not the only issue. There's some work condition issues and some issues where the players want a bit more say in how the league does certain things. And so if it's a step towards that more collaborative relationship, I think that's a positive. So yeah,
I think that's a big point there. Is like the job security and like if they're with injuries, there seems to be kind of a lot of like people weren't sure what was going to happen if they got injured, and career ending injuries and stuff like that. Like there's nothing on the other side for them. So I think that's a big move. Did anybody else have any opinions on the union?
Any support?
I mean, no bias or anything here.
Any support and protection for the players is a positive for me. So
yeah,
that's all I think, really.
Yeah, I'd say from my point of view in Hamilton, Clanahan was well known as the big guy from Tim Hortons, which is a pretty big thing here in Hamilton. I used to live down the street from the first ever Tim Hortons store, but they were famously anti-union. So it was kind of interesting when they brought him in as the first commissioner. It kind of felt like, oh, wow, that's going to be kind of butting heads. And it seemed like that's the way it was. But like some of the other guys said, I think this is a really big deal for not so much just the financial point of view. Because I remember when they first announced they wanted to make a union, they were talking about, one thing I've never heard a union do. They say like, we won't negotiate a CBA for a couple of years. We understand with the pandemic and stuff like that, we've got to, go slow, which I've never heard anybody do, kind of give away their kind of leverage. But the things were other things like safe work conditions. Like you remember the really hot days in Winnipeg and stuff like that, where guys were complaining how they were getting to games and stuff like that, and then injuries and things like that, and even little stuff like getting massages and stuff, those kind of benefits that you're covered for. And then the last thing, of course, that year that they did the 25% deferral of their wages, and then it turned out to be like a for real thing. Instead of just a deferral, it ended up just being a cut. And I think that's what kind of brought guys together. But it's nice to see. I will say I've been lucky enough to meet Noonan twice. He was amazing to talk to, and he's really straightforward. Like the first time I talked to him, the first thing I said to him, he asked like, so as a fan, what do you want to ask about? And I said, when are you guys going to recognize the union? And I as soon as I said it, I was like, oh man, that might be too far. And he to his credit, he was like, I used to be a player. I understand you look at every professional sports league in North America, it's a fact of business. This is what we got to do, and we got to work it out together. But I'm just getting my, feet in the pool. What's his saying that you guys always... Is he
all in?
He's
all in.
All in.
Yeah, he was all in on getting stuff done, and so he showed it. So anyway, I'm really impressed that I think these guys are going to work really well together, and I like Marco Carducci, which is hard to say as a Forge fan. As the president, though, it seems like he's really ready to move on it too. So good stuff.
Yeah,
I'm a little bit curious if we're gonna see, like, if recognizing the union and having a union, if that is going to do anything to Canadians playing abroad, and if that's gonna be something that is, potentially enticing them to come back home. Obviously, the league as a whole, having an ability to play at home is a draw. But I wonder if there have been any of those players that they're playing somewhere else, whether it's Sweden or England or Spain, and they have some sort of a union there. Was that always a little bit of a like, yeah, I can go home, but there's like no safety net,
Right?
And if that adds to the incentive to maybe consider the CPL as their next step.
Certainly can't hurt to when you have a guy like is it Simon from Montreal, who had the son who had some extreme health issues, and he stayed with Montreal just so that he could keep his benefits as a Canadian, so that his kid could have continuous health care. So if you have something like health benefits involved with any sort of bargaining that they have, then it's certainly going to be a draw to get guys back over here for sure.
That was one of the things that I interviewed Marcel de Jong about. Like we kind of mentioned about it because he was a president before Carducci, and he had kind of said that playing abroad and having that protection, and then coming somewhere where there was none, was like an eye opener. And I think it definitely was something that was holding people back maybe from coming back home, because if you're playing in Europe and you have that protection, why did you move somewhere? Like obviously you've got your own regular Canadian benefits, but it's not the same thing. So I think that will play a big part in Canadians coming back home, I think.
Anthony, I think it's going to be interesting to see how much of it is those type of things versus the gradually increasing salary.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the overall driver, and the quality of the league. Like if the league continues to go up like it is, and recruiting the type of coaches and the type of players, I think that's going to be more important than some of the union benefits. Now everyone's pointed out having strong health benefits, being protected when you're traveling, like those kind of things are very important. But in the end, if you're making another $20,000-$30,000, you can pay for those things, right? So it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
Yeah, like the fact that we're seeing players come in from the A League is a really good sign of the standard that the league is getting to. We're seeing players make that decision. So it's definitely going to be interesting. So the next kind of topic, I just thought we would, if anybody else wanted to chime in there, but I think the next thing is obviously like the World Cup is like a huge thing. So how do people find how Canada played, B, what you think is needed going into 2026? Because obviously like Canada just want to end up like Qatar and be like the worst performing host nation. So Denton, since how you're wearing that cap, I'll let you answer that question first.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously it was, I'm not that critical. Like, I mean, I think we all knew from the start, we were in there, to show that we could qualify. A win would have been lovely. A goal would have been nice. We got a goal. Let's see. And I mean, as it turns out, Croatia and Morocco, like, nobody's going to give us too hard a time for how we handled ourselves. Going into 2026, honestly, I'm not John Herdman, so I don't have to make those calls, but I am a fan. So I will say we really this is going to not just our chance, but FIFA's chance to show what a proper, above the board, happy fan, happy player World Cup should look like. And so, I mean, we really want to make sure that our infrastructure is tip top, that we've done a lot of practice, that we know exactly how everything's going to go, and that we're able to pack the stadium just as much as we hope we can. So that's my take.
Anybody else want to jump in on that one?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Jerry.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think from a Canadian perspective, there's a couple of things. When the group stage first ended, and we didn't win a game, we scored technically 2 goals, but one was an own goal, and so really all we had was that one goal. I know a lot of people were down on Herdman. I think having gotten to the end, and now you say, oh, two teams from our group went to the semifinal. One is the second ranked team in the world. It definitely repaints the entire how did our group do and how did we do within our group. And I think just the reality of 4 more years of, we're already seeing some of the players that were on the team this year, whether it's Alistair Johnson going to Celtic, or who was it? Ismail Koney that went to Watford.
Yeah.
And so you're already seeing those moves, and then you're going to have 4 more years of the CPL to be that, whether it's actually League One Canada and then the CPL and kind of this new created pathway. We're absolutely going to see, more of that pathway used by the time we get to 2026. So I'm not worried about how we did. I don't think that we are going to be necessarily a one and done, see you in 36 years kind of team again. I think we're finally developing enough of a footballing infrastructure in this country that we can make regular appearances in the World Cup. I think it's going to be a long time before we ever get to that point where we're a challenging to win the whole thing, but baby steps. Right now, like Denton said, we qualified this year, that was the goal. Anybody, and I saw on Reddit a couple of times people were like, we need to think big, we can win the thing. And I was like, calm down.
Yeah.
Qualifying was our World Cup. That was our accomplishment. Anything on top of that was gravy. And I think, that now we just need to become, the next step is, how do we become a perennial qualifier? Yeah. And then from there, we can start to talk about how do we get out of the group? How do we, make the round of 8 or the quarterfinals or whatever. But I think, it's just nowhere but up from here. I'm excited for it.
We just need to start developing a couple more Alistair Johnsons, because we need 2 or 3 center backs. We need another 6, because both of the 6s are not going to be at the next World Cup in Piet and Hutchinson.
Mm-hmm.
But if the front 5 is borderline quarterfinal worthy, it's getting the rest of the pitch, and Borjan might not even be of age come the next one, so we might need to develop a goalkeeper, or hope Pantemis or what's the guy's name that broke his arm right before, or broke his ankle. LA.
Who was it? Yeah. Maxime
Crepeau, yeah.
But then you've got Dane Sinclair as well, who's a really good
he's good too, yeah. But yeah, like Jerry was saying, the qualifying game was our World Cup. Derek and I were one section apart from each other at that game. It was like a borderline shed tear type thing. So it was what happened in Qatar was more than enough to build on that and go ahead for 4 years when they get to host it.
Mm-hmm.
The qualifying cycle is so important this year too, because now we don't just have the World Cup handed to us for being the host nation, right? And it, that no one can take that away from us, and we can put that, notch in our belt.
A lot of it is like Canada recognizing where they are in the international football ecosystem and identifying what teams in that bracket do to be successful. So obviously you've got your Frances and Germanys and Spains, they exist in a different reality, but then how do teams like Croatia or even like a Siberia or Morocco do well? And it's having a handful of elite players like Canada's got in Jonathan David, etc. But then these teams tend to have quite a rigid defensive way of playing, so they just make sure they don't concede many and then rely on their elite players to score. So I think it's going to be a case of over the next 4 years, like developing that way of playing, so when it comes to 2026 they've got that in place, and then also kind of galvanizing domestic support. So when they have home games, it feels like quite not aggressive, but quite energetic. So it does really feel like a home game, and you could get to the quarterfinals if you put those things in place.
Yeah, like looking at the games in Edmonton and Toronto, especially the one in Edmonton, I think, or Hamilton, sorry, I beg pardon. Like the atmosphere was like, that's intimidating to come into. Like obviously the weather people were kind of like talking about the most, but I think the atmosphere from the fans themselves, like it showed that Canada is actually like a football nation, not just like ice hockey or whatever. So it was kind of nice for you guys to be acknowledged for being like football fans as much as anybody else. So
Anthony, I was wondering too about what everyone felt about Alfonso and where his best role is for the national team, because like as I looked at that, I'm going, you guys are right, that front five. But if you've got one of the best left backs in the world, my question was, why don't we play him at left back? Even if it's not the best for him, might be the best for the team. I'm just wondering what this group thought of that.
We don't have the midfield to do it at current. You need two absolute worldies in the center to be able to support having just a 4, and they need to have that 5 basically, so that him and Tejan or him and Alistair, depending on if he's playing in the middle or out wide, it's really hard for them to play as offensive as they want to be and still deal with just having a 38-year-old Vittoria and a very not mobile Kamal Miller to deal with, having to deal with everything coming over the top of them once they lose the ball.
And I think it doesn't have to be a trade-off. It doesn't have to be just because he's a left back, you're missing out on what he gives from an attacking perspective.
No.
So if I was them, like if you play him as a left back, I'd have like a double pivot, a 6 who's really defensive and knows to like kind of always shuffle over to that side. And I'd have like a left winger for Canada who's really, really inverted and keeps on tucking into the spaces there. And that way you still get Fonzie going forward and doing that stuff, but he's still a left back as well.
I think that's a big thing, is developing another 6. I think Atiba Hutchinson 8 years ago would have been perfect, but that's kind of where we are, and I think that's it's going to be a big thing over the next couple of years.
I just think Herdman faced a bit of criticism for some of his tactical choices, leaving Atiba on too long in the Croatian match, stuff like that. But if you look at, there's a lot of constraints there too. We had a lot of midfielders that were injured or coming off injuries, and that I think limited his choices in terms of what he was able to do in midfield. So obviously adding some depth in midfield's got to be a big priority ahead of the next World Cup. And the CPL plays an important role in adding that depth too. Like this is the pipeline to develop players to the next level that are going to provide that depth at the next World Cup and the ones beyond that, right? So,
what's interesting is your guys' new coach. I was listening to Gary talk about it, and he has that system where the left back is like everywhere on the pitch.
Yeah.
And that would be an awesome kind of system for Alfonso to just be everywhere and anywhere kind of thing. So, and to your point, Derek, too, about the CPL, I'm really excited about the CPL and League One Canada building, because think about where Kone, one of our best players on the pitch, where he was 4 years ago. Right?
2 years ago,
even 2 years ago. So imagine what could be coming up in the pipeline right now. Like there might be, a center back coming up that's going to be amazing. There might be like another midfielder coming up or something like that too, right? So it's exciting. And I like to see, I would love to see Passius from our team, Wubens, getting some chances too, because I think we do have some exciting young players coming up that we don't know what they're going to be in 4 years. So that's pretty exciting, because it's not always been the case for us, right?
Well, I mean, I think that's the Joel Waterman story, right? Like drafted by the league, moved on to Montreal, playing for the national team in such a short window too. Like this isn't the kind of thing of like, oh yeah, maybe go to the CPL for 8 years and eventually do something. Like if you got the skill, you got the skill. And I think, I'm just so excited for how many more Watermans are we going to see over the next 4 years before the World Cup. And whether it's, as much as I hate to say it, whether it's a Pasillas or, any number of hopefully non-Forge players that
So I thought we'd switch gears and just go into like a little bit of Wanderers talk here. So I thought it'd be good for I know that Derek sometimes listens to the show, so I think it'd be good for you guys to kind of give your opinion on the new coach. I know some people were kind of like a little bit, we should have gone for somebody who was more experienced, I guess, but just want to kind of get your ideas on the new coach. And obviously they announced the new assistant coach yesterday, who'd obviously been with Patrice at Vaughan. So if somebody wants to kick that off, that'd be awesome. Go for Denton.
Well, I'm excited to witness our manager, Geyser. Stephen Hart had his points, but we need someone wiser. We've long been suspecting we need some injection, but is Patrice a prescriber of ivermectin or Pfizer? We've still got the drive to regain our composure. We've drowned all our sorrows, and now we get sober. Let's drop the imposters and build up our roster and build the team over with monsters like Rover. But more than just Rover, we've got Fumpa Mwandwe. When he's there with Omar, you're in for a long day. Add to that jelly a chap named Morelli, and we're going all way with our good captain Andre.
I love it. All right, so that's the show. There's no coming back from that. So,
see you later, everyone.
Nobody else can top that. So
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. I mean, so I think I remember the night before he was announced, and that I don't remember what that Twitter account was, but like that Twitter account kind of dropped dropped the bomb on all of us.
News,
yeah.
Yep.
And I remember my very first reaction was, an L1O coach, really? Like, how long have we been doing this search for? And we come up with an L1O guy, and I'm happy to say that I've done a complete 180 on that perspective. Like, and I think it's primarily been through Discord and hearing non-Wanderers fans and how highly they spoke of him, and I think that we can be, as Wanderers fans, we can sometimes get a little down on ourselves and on the team, and and unless we're bringing in a Pep or Jurgen Klopp or someone, we're gonna be disappointed in who we bring in. But just to hear everybody else that has a much better knowledge of Canadian soccer than I do go, oh man, this is actually a really good signing for you guys. I think that was encouraging. And then just listen to him talk. The guy just exudes charisma, and you can tell that he's so passionate about developing his players, and and at the same time, it's not this like, I don't know, like it seems like he's very clear about, like, I have a limited amount of time, and I will give you as much of that time as you want, as long as you want it. If you don't want to be here, if you don't want to develop, you're free to go somewhere else. Like, I'm going to develop players, and that's what we're going to be about. So I'm so excited for some attacking football next year.
That was the big, me and Gary kind of talked about on the podcast when we were talking about it. That was a huge thing. It was attacking football. And even when Jordan was announced yesterday, he kind of is in the same vein of, like, that's kind of, they want to entertain. And I think that's I think the brief that Derek took away from last year was that people were kind of tired of the turgid displays. And that's no whatever at Stephen, it's just it just wasn't the greatest football to watch. So I'm really excited, like you too, Jerry. I can't wait to see this guy put a team out for us. So
looking at his record with Vaughan, and considering that Bobby came from the L1O system as well, I mean, those are two things that I really considered. Those are two things I really considered right off the start, and I was excited as soon as I started looking into the guy. Like, I wasn't all that familiar with his name and stuff, but as soon as I did a little research, I definitely, the hype went up for me anyway.
Yeah, it's like the press conference, like, just, and Gary was the same when he talked to him, like, doing his interview for the latest blog on From Away. There you go, Gary, there's a plug there for you. Don't say I don't help out. But yeah, it's just it's you just want to be in the guy's company, because he just loves the game, and it's amazing to see. So anybody else got any opinions? Derek, Matt?
More or less what Jerry ended up on. I didn't really have much knowledge of them other than I recognize his name from when Vaughan came in 2019. But listening to the guy talk, if he can put out a team and have it perform as well as he speaks, then we're in for a good show.
and at risk of being the guy who's talking from the center of the universe, League One Ontario is pretty competitive, and like you guys were saying earlier, like, Bobby's being the most successful coach in the league, right? And to see somebody else coming up from there who had like didn't he have like 2 invincible seasons or something like that with them? Like that's pretty impressive at any level. But League One Ontario is really growing, and we've seen it with the guys that have come out of there, right? So I'm pretty excited for you guys. Not on a couple of days, or 4 games, I guess, a year, but other than that, I'm excited. And even on the games that we play, you guys, I think it's going to be really exciting with the kind of possession style that we want to play, and then the attacking style that you guys are going to want to play. It's going to make we've always had pretty good games, except for those 2 at your place. But other than that, you guys have been pretty tough competition for us, and I think it's going to be exciting to see what happens with this kind of style.
That's what the CPL pathway is all about too, right? Not just the players, but the coaches coming up as well.
Yeah, big time.
Sounds like he may have had a bit of a rivalry with Bobby back in the day too, when Bobby was coaching Sigma. So excited to see that.
Has anybody looked into like what the Sigma and Vaughn record is head to head? I'd be curious to know like what Bobby versus Patrice they're like all time.
Sounds like a task for Gary. Gary should review that footage and report.
I'll do that. I'll do a deep dive for the Athletic on it.
I will say, like, I was one of the people, I take a bit of heat on the Discord for being a pessimist, and I was initially pretty skeptical. Like I was looking for somebody with pro experience, and I think that there's not a lot of people at the club that have experience in other pro environments. And so to me, I thought that was important in the hire, but I've done a bit of a 180 as well, like Jerry, where having heard him speak, having heard what other people say about him, obviously like a really effective communicator, and you get a real sense of what his footballing philosophy and the tactical identity and the identity he wants for the team is. Like right away before we even set foot on the pitch, he's made that really clear, and I like that. If he's half as effective at communicating to players as he is at communicating to supporters and the media, I think he'll do great. So,
yeah, I think that's a big thing, and as I think with the players as well, like a lot of them, we're going to see a lot of players coming in from Ontario, and I think that was like our big thing, is to trying to attract those players to Halifax. So I think it's we might see some interesting signings after Christmas. So,
and or Anthony, can we throw one more thing in there though? Like I'm very excited about it, having met him. I'm pretty fired up for what I think he can do, and for the types of players. After sitting down with Derek and Matt and just talking like ears only of what kind of players they were trying to bring in and who's reaching out to the club now, which is super exciting for us. The only thing we should keep in mind is that, number one, Steven never had club experience at a professional club, and neither does he. So I think if we're looking back at this in a couple of years' time and it doesn't work, then that could be something that we point to going, wow, we had an opportunity here to bring in someone from a club that has done it, and we didn't do it. Now, I think it's going to work, but I'm just putting it out there that is one thing that could be a fly in the ointment for us moving forward.
At least Patrice has at least played a season that's more than 10 or 12 games.
Yeah. And I think as well, that's just like an Everton fan's perspective on life.
Don't stare.
It goes straight to the negative.
Talking about Everton podcast.
But I think
Lampard or Patrice.
But I think that as well though, like I mean, like him and Jordan, like they've basically run Vaughan from top to bottom. Like I mean, they've been involved in every aspect of the club, which I think is going to be stand them in good stead going into what they have to do with the Wanderers. So I think that's really going to help.
It'll be interesting to see their man management style.
Yeah,
Steven as well.
Yeah,
so I think that's going to be very interesting to watch.
I saw on a few posts as well. Ryan Raposo, who is at Vancouver, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like commenting on posts about Patrice calling him Pep Guardiola, and if a professional who's worked with professional coaches is like has that as an affectionate nickname for him, then it bodes pretty well.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's mentioned the fact that Patrice has had a hand in developing some current Canadian men's national team players as well.
Kamal and Alistair.
Yeah.
So one thing I
think Dane Sinclair as well.
Yeah. One thing I noticed, Gary, in your article where you interviewed him is I probably counted 5, maybe 6 times when you were quoting him where he used your name.
I did that on purpose.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, like, hearing the things that the interviews that he said, and then that, like, I feel like that's the level of detail that you give to your players that just like makes them feel seen and noticed, and like it's such a small detail, but just using people's names on a regular basis.
Yep.
You get a lot of people in like businessy worlds who do that a lot, and it feels really forced. But like with him, it feels quite natural, and just you leave it going, oh, he likes me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it did give me kind of going back to Jurgen Klopp's first press conference with Liverpool vibes of just how well he spoke, and Jurgen's continued to do that. He knows a lot of the fan media people and calls them by name and does that sort of thing. It's all very positive things, and if what he did from 2016 to 2022 there, if Patrice can do half of it, then we're all in for some smiles and
just
some good times at the ground.
Like the first thing he said when I started chatting to him, he was like, oh yeah, I'm well happy to do anything like this. Like I love all the blogging and the podcasts in the country because it's so important to grow the game in this country. So all of like the kind of underground stuff is so important to me, blah, blah, blah. So he recognizes it as like something that's valuable and not a chore.
But then he like rushed you because he was going to a Christmas party. So.
Oh, yeah. He's hosting.
It was all lip service. It was all lip service. Oh yeah, I love this.
Yeah, exactly.
I think he was saying that so his wife wasn't mad at him. So it was just like, yeah, you're really valuable to me looking over.
So the next kind of topic I wanted to get into is that obviously we signed a player, Thiago Coimbra. We'll probably say that horribly wrong, but it seems like a really good sign of kind of like where the club wants to be. Like you said, a good CV of being down in Brazil and stuff like that. So I just wanted everyone to get people's opinion on the sign itself, but then also this isn't a Patrice signing. This is a club signing, and how we like. Are we going to? I thought always what they were going to do was like everything was going to go through the coach. So I just want to get people's feelings on that too. So
I can't believe you guys announced the signing. We never get that.
No, you Forge guys are in the dark about everything.
Well, that's why we follow Pacific on social media.
I like that one, Denton. That's good. God.
Yeah.
So
I think the Thiago signing checks 3 important boxes, which is U21. He's Canadian and he's coming from, an established club from Brazil, even though he was just in the U20 ranks over there. I mean, they're pretty historic and, like I said, established.
Yeah, one of his teammates just went to Real Madrid for, well, if he does all his add-ons and stuff, for possibly hundreds of millions of dollars.
You think that's how much the Wanderers paid?
No, that one of his.
Yeah,
I forget the guy's name, but he's just like 16, Endrick. I think. Endrick, that's the one.
Yeah, Real Madrid got suckered. They're gonna pay out the nose for him. We got this guy.
No, I think he looks good. He looks like he's just a big kid, isn't he? And like that, I mean, that's like the negative and the positive for me. Like the positive is like he's got like a big physical profile, but the only negative on that I'd say is like when you have really big guys playing with teenagers, even if they're a big teenager, it can sometimes like make them look a bit better than they actually are because they can just bully people. But you don't know if that's going to be the case with him or not. He might actually, that might translate to the men's game. You just don't know. So it's worth a punt. I imagine he's inexpensive and he's played for Canada under 20s. They'll probably be looking to get him into the Olympic squad if possible. So yeah.
He kind of has that Omar feel to him. I think it might take him a while to kind of adapt to everything because like, that step up is a lot bigger than what people envisage. So I think it'll probably take him a little while to settle in, but I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's a good signing. But that's the thing that kind of stood out for me was the little blurb they put at the bottom from Matt Fegan saying that it was like that they're hopeful that like Patrice will push him onto that next level. So that's going to be interesting.
I don't know. Oh, sorry, Derek. I don't know.
I was actually going to build on what you said, Simon. And
okay, I'll let you do that.
Not just as a U21, he's a U21 for the next 3 years, and I think that's something we've been missing is that pipeline of U21. So we had all of our U21s age out of that bracket this year, and to have a player under contract who's going to be a U21, and you've got the time to develop them, and you're not forced into making that tough decision at the end of the next season where you say, can we keep him if he's no longer a U21? They've got a nice long runway now to develop this guy and see how he works out. But sorry, Simon, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I don't know much about the guy, but just based on where he's coming from, definitely has me excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, big time.
And the fact of him as well, you don't have to kind of teach him how to be a professional because he's already been in a professional environment, which a lot of the Canadian players haven't. So there's that first year where their behavior maybe isn't as a professional should be, but his will already be there.
And it could be a signal that they're going to take advantage of that discount on having multiple U21s.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Do we think that we're going to see any of the developmental players from last year like step up, or has anybody heard any kind of? I know it was kind of briefly mentioned that there were a couple of them were out or developmental contracts and whether we're going to keep them or not. Does anybody hear anything? Dave,
No.
you're the inside inside man. It's the only reason you're here.
I literally sat down with Derek this afternoon, so I'm trying to parse my words, like just to get the update on a few things. But I just think the club's just reviewing everything about how they've operated, and to everything you guys have said, you can't leave yourself with no outs at the end of contracts. I mean, it'd be similar to Premier League, where like, 6 months left, we got to sell the guy, and you're stuck in a corner. It's similar. We gotta have outs. We can't have one guy being responsible for all the under 21 minutes. So I know that's going to be an area that they're going to be strongly looking at. Like, I'm very excited to see the announcements over the next couple weeks. And I just think there's a lot of opportunities here for the club to reinvent themselves under Patrice. And now Matt has this experience of the last 4 years of doing this, and a new coach. I think it's going to be really interesting to see it all play out.
Yeah, I'm super excited for it too, to see where it brings us, and just to see that kind of next level of talent that we're going to bring through. Like as Derek said, like we've kind of burnt we've kind of got rid of the players that we were dependent on, and it's going to be interesting to see who we bring in, and this is a good start, I think.
And one other thing about Coimbra, if I can pick up on something that Mr. Boudreau was saying about how he's not worth $100 million. And Gary was saying that, he's worth to take a punt on. And that ties in with what you said, Anthony, that it was a pre-Geyser signing. And I mean, I think that's important for two things. One, I'm really glad that he's a good developmental project, like Derek had said, but it's not going to be something that's going to be, an unmanageable chunk of our salary cap. Like that, yep. If he's not quite who Geyser was going to hire, that's not going to throw all of his plans out the window. Like this was a nice, harmless addition from a salary cap perspective. So that's good. That, he's got a wide open slate to work with. And I mean, also it also is kind of proof that when Lamotte was leaving and when Jeremy was leaving, like it really felt like the whole team was just unraveling at its core. And in retrospect, now you can kind of go back and say, okay, like they were, we were taking a few steps backwards, but they were also taking a few steps forward at the same time. Like things weren't quite as calamitous as it felt in that 1 week right after,
and Dan, there's a lot of similarities there between, like, the more I thought about it after the season, like JGL and Rampy, although they look like different players, functionally, I think they're actually quite similar players, keeping the ball ticking along. Maybe Rampy's got a few more tricks up his sleeve, getting past players, but JGL knows how to make that yard of space for himself. I'd love to hear from Kevin just on how Bobby and their staff work with bringing in players, because you just don't hear about too many misses on their side.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, if you're going to talk about, okay, so first of all, with the not too many misses, I think we've been really lucky that we've kept a lot of our core, and I think people recognize like the big name players, whether it's from keeper through to Becker, the captain and stuff. Our core is pretty solid, hated but solid. But it's actually kind of interesting. We lose a lot of guys that I don't think people recognize, like the quality, like a guy like a Kwame Awua. We lost like the guy who goes to Mobabuli goes to York and makes them like this amazing squad in no time. Mm-hmm. And he just up and left us, and we came back the next year and Pacias just took over. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy. And I think it's got a lot to do with what I think you guys have now, in that Bobby has a vision. And so he gives that to his players, and then he brings in guys that fit that vision. So rather than just looking for the best player out there that you can get, and I mean, we're lucky that he has a pipeline and a lot of connections and a big, contact list. So we get a lot of players in that way, but they're people who know his system. And even his misses, the big swings, like I would say Jordan Hamilton right now was a miss when he came in. But I'm super excited because I honestly think it's more about the league, and that the level was maybe even higher than somebody who's been overseas and is coming back to Canada. And they're kind of like, you know what, I've played over here. I've played in the MLS. I've won championships, and now I'm coming back to the, CPL. So I'm just going to kind of, breeze through here. And when he came here and found out what we had here, I think him with a preseason is going to be a big hit for us next year. So yeah, it's a good point you make. And I think that your new coach, from everything I've heard of him, he has a really definite style, and he's going to play exactly that. Win or lose, he's going to stick to his guns. And I think that's what really benefits us. We went through, we were the top of the league, smashing everybody. And then we had this long run where nothing was working. And it just was like, and for us, we were like, our fans were starting to panic, like, what is this? Because we're like always in the finals and always winning and all that kind of stuff. So we were not taking it well at all. But it did not matter to Bobby, because he knew we're just going to keep running this, and we'll buy in. The boys will buy into it, and when it matters, it'll work. And I think that's what it's going to be with you guys now. I'm actually really excited about your team. York, I don't like them, obviously, but I'm excited to see what they do with some of their moves. And with Mo having a full season with them, they're going to be dangerous. So, I mean, everybody's getting better, and you guys really needed to get this coach right. And Dave made a really good point. Sorry, I'm almost done. Dave made a really good point about, if this doesn't work out, it's going to be the two club guys. It was our chance to get a club guy or whatever. But I think it's really going to work out well for you guys, and that you're going to have an identity. And I think the teams that do the best in this league so far, like I can tell you, our identity is Atletico with their new coach had a definite identity. Like whether you like that style of football or not, they had a definite identity. And Cavalry has always had an identity. I hate them. They're dirty cheats and kickers, but they definitely have an identity, right? So, and those are the four big teams. I couldn't really tell you over the time what Valor, other than that they're the beige of CPL. They're just right there, and so, and obviously FC Edmonton, unfortunately for them. So having an identity is really a strong thing. And I think you guys, and PFC had an identity, I think, too. Again, they carried it on because of the coaches that they had. Like even when they brought in their new coach, he was a guy who'd been there since the beginning. So he knew what the whole thing was. So I think having an identity is the biggest thing. And then you grow from there.
I think people as well, kind of undervalue the fact that you guys have been champions so much, how much that helps you attract players too. Like Jordan Hamilton made that point that, he's going for the goal kind of thing, right? So if we become successful, that's really going to help us attract those type of players too. So it's going to be interesting to see. And I hope we have the same kind of effect that Atletico had this year, where, a new coach come in and change things around a little bit. And it's going to be fun. So just to finish up, I just thought we'd just go around, and you're allowed to have one wish for Christmas. What would you like it to be? Gary, you can start.
Left back.
Nice.
Well, I want a decent left back, because I think that this is gonna sound like it's gonna sound harsh, but I like De Carolis a lot, but it's a bit weird that we're 4 years in and he's the best left back we've ever had. Like fine player, like functional, good player, but he shouldn't be the best left back we've ever had. So I want a good left back.
I am gonna snip that and send it to him, and hopefully
I'm complimenting him though. I'm saying he's the best of the bunch.
Hopefully he comes to your house and slap you in the face. Dave.
I'm gonna go with dependable goalkeeping.
Nice. That's a
Sorry,
good one.
guys. Sorry.
Yeah.
Love you both.
Okay.
They definitely don't listen.
Yeah, they definitely don't.
The amount of shit we've given.
I know.
Myself, in case either of them aren't playing professional locally.
I was actually talking to Kieran Basket today. I didn't realize his parents were from the north of Ireland, so he actually has his Irish passport now. So we might see him turn up in the League of Ireland. So there you go.
Great, and listen, I love those guys, man. They're great guys, and Christian from the beginning, you couldn't ask for better pros. Like whenever we were asking to go out do sponsor stuff, camps, whatever it was, like those were the guys. They just said, yeah, no problem. Like, let's go. They weren't worried about how many appearances were in their contract that they have to do. They would just go do it. And there was several guys like that. That's why I'm sad about losing JGL, Pierre, guys like that. But anyway, hopefully we get just someone that is steady, can get those crosses. We don't have those so many goals that were scrums in the 6, like those kind of things. We need some class goalkeeping next year.
Yeah, Dave. So Ox was brilliant with community stuff. How was Luis Pereira? Anyway, moving on.
He's got to bring it back to Pereira somehow.
Yeah.
One day we'll do a retroactive pod that talks about the day we had to go clean out the players' apartments after year 1.
So he made a public appearance at the accident and emergency when he fucked up his arm. So that was his community.
Oh my god, I can't even. Moving on.
I want to be on that pod.
That will be a live show.
It might just be beer somewhere quiet where nobody's recording. How about that?
We'll disguise your voice. How about that?
We can get something sorted out at Wayfarers down here and have some privateers.
Matt, what would be your one wish for?
I would absolutely echo David's sentiments on goalkeeping. I played midfield until I was in my early 20s and then switched to goalkeeper because our goalkeeper moved away, and played senior A men's goalkeeper as a complete novice, other than I was a decent player and could read the game. So as someone who sits directly behind the goalkeeper in warm-up and half the game, I would just love to be able to have a shred of confidence that more than one game of quality goalkeeping is going to happen over and over and over again. I got in an argument with somebody on Discord, I can't remember which person it was, that goalkeeping was the most important position to build off of, and I still think it is. And I'm as someone who played out for most of his life and was a scorer in hockey, that's saying something.
It's very rare that fights break out on Discord, so it's kind of disturbing. Kevin, what about you, buddy? If it was Forge related, we don't want to fucking know. So
okay, for you guys, what I want is a healthy season for Morelli. I want him to have a comeback season, and if it's for Forge, I want Montreal to fuck off.
Bye, buddy. Bye. Jerry.
Oh, I mean the left back and the keeper have already been taken. I think for me, I want another adult in the room. I think that's going to be my kind of biggest wish list. Whether that person's a midfielder, or a keeper, a center forward, I think losing JGL, as much as Dave, I agree with you that like JGL and Ramp are very similar players on the pitch. Having somebody else in the room that has that veteran presence that can kind of lead all the young guys that we're going to be bringing in, I think that's going to be huge. So positionally, I don't know if I care too much, but we need another adult in the room.
Like it. Derek.
Echo everything everyone said so far about a proven goal scorer up front. I think we talked about that last year, and it didn't happen. The theory last year was sort of everybody was going to get a little better and score some more goals, and I just don't think you can count on that. People are going to have up seasons, people are going to have down seasons, people are going to get better, people are going to get injured, and we can't expect Morelli to come back at 100%. So I think both from sort of a putting goals in the net, but also from a mentorship perspective, because we've got younger guys like Amla and Fumpa that are, really this is their first shot at a professional level. We'll probably be bringing some guys in from League One. And so if we can bring in somebody that's got some pro experience overseas, that is a proven goal scorer that can then also teach those guys the things that sometimes are harder for coaches to teach. Sometimes they got to learn them from their peers. I think that's absolutely critical to our success next year. So
that's a good one. Denton.
I have to definitely echo what everyone has said, especially Derek and that guy from Twitter, that we really do need. I mean, all of our focus has been on the youth. Patrice wants development, we want a U23 team, all that sort of stuff. I'll be very curious to see, we've got at least one veteran coming, I hope, and I want to see who he is. But for my wish list, I just mentioned it. The U23 squad. My Christmas gift would be knowing the schedule, 6 friendly games between League One Canada teams going to Moncton and Charlottetown, and get a real chance to develop something there.
That's a good one. Simon.
Yeah, I'd love a new left back, an experienced goalie like everyone else. And I'm actually surprised Denton just touched on it, because I was going to say my personal wish would be to see the U23 squad come to Moncton so I can raise the Wanderers scarf here in my own home province. But yeah, if I'm doing a personal wish, I'd love to see some of the boys come up here to New Brunswick and play a game.
Nice. So my wish would be for Derek to be a little bit more optimistic about stuff with football, and Gary to help out more with the podcast. You lazy bastard, you do fucking nothing for this thing. So that would be my wish. So I just want to thank everybody for coming and hanging out. I really appreciate it. Let's hope that we get some of our wishes for Christmas, and we have a great season next year. So thanks, everybody.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you.
Peace.
Thanks for having me.
Folks, please. Right foot, please. Time to drink up, folks. Get out. Out to book.